first of all, he's done a great job. Done a great job with the staff. Done a great job with the players and scheme and the morale. In my mind, you guys won't see it this way, but in my mind, we have not changed a whole lot in terms of the things that we've done here in the past. So what I mean is maybe some aspects of what you saw, when we first got here. Maybe some aspects you saw with Joe Moorhead. Maybe some aspects what you saw with Coach Yursich, and so on and so forth. But I think we're back to doing all of those things again, which I think are going to make us difficult to defend when you're using multiple personnel groups, multiple sets, multiple tempos. And I think the running backs have a chance to reap the rewards of that in a lot of different ways, in terms of different ways to get the ball into their hands, run game, pass game, screen game, whatever that may be. And then also, obviously, one of the biggest issues we had last year was explosive plays. I think the most explosive we were in the last 2 games. So the more we can be explosive, specifically in the passing game, I think will also create opportunities for us to be more explosive in the running game, and also just in terms of running back touches. The other one that I'm adamant about that was challenging and problematic the last couple of years was the emphasis of getting the ball into your best players' hands. You got to be able to do that as a play caller, and that was a big part of this interview process with Andy.
James, some years you have maybe named the captain 2 or 3 at this point. Where do you feel like you're at within the program in terms of that level of player leadership and just overall?
Yeah, so we did that a couple weeks ago. We did a vote, and a lot of times we do that vote right before the summer starts because we would like to go into the summer with some of that leadership, but we only make the decision if there's clear and obvious guys in terms of the vote. Like there was one guy dramatically on defense, one guy dramatically on offense that got enough votes or special teams to make that decision now, and it wasn't. So that this will give us an opportunity to continue to evaluate, give the players more time to earn that from their teammates and from the staff, and then we'll vote obviously probably a couple weeks into camp like we traditionally do.
Hey James, with the House settlement, what are the ramifications going to be, and have you thought about how much of that $22 million is going to football?
Yeah, so as you can imagine, there is a ton to still work through and figure out. That was a big part of the discussions at the Big Ten meetings in California with the commissioner, with the ADs, with all the head football coaches. And although we got a pretty good idea of where this is going, kind of big picture, how it's going to play out on all these different campuses is going to be very different. Some schools won't be able to meet the threshold. They won't have the revenue to be able to do it. I think we'll be a program that will. But then also, you also have Title IX that factors into that as well. So there's a lot that goes into it. I don't have enough information right now, Mike, to answer your question intelligently and specifically enough because the details have not been worked out yet.
James, this offseason you had a chance to add a handful of lettermen to your staff. What do they bring to the program, and why is it important to have guys who played here come back and join the program?
Yeah, I just think, whether it's, depending on what the position is, whether it's an actual full-time on-the-field coach, whether it's someone in recruiting, whether it's somebody in player development, having people within the building that have walked in their footsteps, institutional knowledge, community knowledge, football at Penn State, what it's like. And then some of those guys also have NFL experience, which gives them instant credibility. I think has been really valuable. I think Alan Zamitis is a great example. Ty Howell is a great example. Dan Connor is a great example. Really, in all three of them are in different kind of areas, but have done a phenomenal job. And then I think, like anything else, when Alan Zamitis comes here and does a phenomenal job, and then he vouches for somebody that he played with or knows, and we have a position open, then it makes a ton of sense to sit down with those people and see if they do make sense. And then some of them, we've identified, over the last couple years, and we're just waiting for the right time to get them in, or NCAA rules, those types of things. So it's been awesome. And then I think you guys know we've worked really hard at closing that gap and continue building those relationships with the players that played here before. Was a real challenge when we first got here, and I think we're in a really good place now. But you can always get better, and I think they help with that too.
James, when he's been healthy, Harrison Wallace has produced last year in the season opener, last year in the Peach Bowl, spring game. When you wrap your mind around where he is now in year 4, what did you mean for the offense? What do you kind of envision, and where is he in his development?
Yeah, we thought he was going to have a big year last year, and that got limited. No fault of his own. And we feel that way, and probably more so this year. He's a year older, he's a year mature, he's been developed. And I think he's very hungry, because I think there's frustration from last year, got cut short, because I think he felt the same way. So he's in a really good place. He's had a great summer so far. He had a really good spring. And we're expecting him to have a big year for us. We need for him to have a big year for us. He's super athletic, probably one of the most explosive guys we have in our program. And I think you guys saw flashes of that at times. I think where some of the challenges were is just the chemistry with all the time he missed with the quarterbacks, that was lacking. So having him back and getting all this work this summer and this spring has been really valuable.
James, what kind of feedback have you gotten from Drew Aller in terms of getting that chemistry with Fleming and those other guys? What are maybe you kind of hearing or seeing this summer?
Yeah, I just think we're in a better place from an organizational standpoint in terms of the things that the coaches can do, and Chuck Losey, what he can do in terms of planning in the big picture, make sure throwing is a part of that. That the coaches are doing a good job with the NCAA rules that allow us to work with the guys. That now includes a ball. I think those things are important. And then, obviously the players doing it on their own as well. I think that's been really good. And I guess an example of what I'm saying is the players may have a 7-on-7 scheduled, but maybe that wasn't coordinated with the run that we had that day, and the run was brutal, and they don't really feel like going and doing 7-on-7 after just running the way they did. So kind of making sure all the pieces of the puzzle fit together, so that all these areas can be developed and part of the plan. There's ways to do that. I mean, whether it's low red zone work where you can limit the running, or top of the routes and things like that. So I think it's been really good. Obviously we still got a ton more work, but the feedback from the players as well as the staff has been really good. Drew was in my office this morning having a conversation about some of those things and how we think we can make them better.
James, following up on the veterans question, specifically with Jordan Hill, what about his background and experience makes him a good fit? And is that a new position in the program, the director of schools?
It's probably a new title. It's not a new position. We had a position come open, and he's filling that position just with a different title. I think you guys know Jordan. A lot of you guys have been covering Penn State football for a long time. I mean, you guys know Jordan is like total class act. As I've gotten to know him as a letterman, as I got to know him as a high school coach, as a former NFL player who won a Super Bowl with a chance to win 2 Super Bowls, A guy who wasn't highly recruited, was a late take, and had a really good career here. And he's just got a really, really good way about him. So everybody I've talked to since I arrived at Penn State just raves about the guy. And as I got to know him, I felt the same way. So when we had an opportunity to get him in the building, we wanted to try to do it. I actually tried to do it a few years earlier. At the time, it didn't make sense for his family, and this timed up better.
James, when's the whiteout, and when should the whiteout be this year?
Great question. As you can imagine, if I could tell you, I would. I literally walked out of a meeting with Pat Vinny and Kevin Threlkill, and that was one of the topics. And to be honest with you, it's not solely my answer, or even Pat's answer. If we want to provide the opponent the experience, the time of day that our fan base wants and expects, that there's a lot of pushing and pulling and compromising and working with the conference and working with the TV partners to try to find a win-win for everybody. I think you guys heard me talk about this a little bit already, so I don't have that answer for you yet. I don't even completely know. I got a pretty good idea where I think it's trending, but I don't know that yet. And the worst thing I could do is say one thing to you guys and then it changes. Or even by saying it to you guys, it impacts the chance of that happening by pissing some people off. I don't want to do that. So it's still working. And then the challenge with that is we get pressure across the campus as well, because all the other themes, we kind of got to wait for this one, and then all the other themes come from that. And those other themes impacted a bunch of different departments and a bunch of different places on campus. So as you can imagine, you're not the only group that wants to know. The fans want to know, ticket office wants to know, and really across campus, everything from ROTC and everything down is impacted by these decisions. So I wish I had an answer for you, but I do not yet.
What's most important to you, though, if you had a choice of the factors for the whiteout? Environment, time, opponent? Do you have a feel from being involved in it?
I'm probably a lot like the fans in terms of I want it all, right? And very few times in life do you get it all. So you'd like the opponent and time of day, for sure. But again, that's challenging. The time of day thing is what's really become more difficult because of when prime time games now are chosen. In the old days, if you picked this opponent, you had a pretty good chance it was going to be at night. Now, based on the different TV networks, it could be at 12 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 3:30. You don't know based on what they think is going to draw the most eyes. So I'm like the fans. I'd like it all, but don't know that yet.
With the new Big Ten, and having the new teams and everything like that, obviously, you play some of the mainstays year after year. Just with new challenges, just how exciting is that for you and your staff just to be able to
Yeah, it's exciting. I think for me though, I think a big part of my job is to limit distractions for the staff and for the players. And I think that's why, to you guys, frustration sometimes it's just one game at a time, 1-0 mentality, because like we spend a ton of time now talking about like the house settlement, talking about revenue sharing and all these things, which are important big picture. But at the end of the day, we got to make sure we can play man coverage, make sure we can run inside zone, and that we can cover a kick. And at the end of the day, we got to keep the main thing, which is developing these young men, putting them in the best position to be successful for them, for our fans, for the Letterman, for everybody, for the community, to give us a chance to beat West Virginia. Is it going to be cool to play some of these opponents we haven't played before? Yes. Is it also going to be challenging? Yes. Do we also have to deal with travel that other conferences that we're competing against don't have to? Yes. And all of our decisions that we're making long term should factor that in. People are talking about roster size right now. Well, our roster size needs to take into consideration that we're going to be traveling across the country when other conferences may not be doing it. Our conference plays 9 conference games. Other conferences don't do that. All these things have an impact, and we got to make sure all of our decisions are looking at all those different factors. But again, for me, I have my opinions that I give to Pat Kraft and we give to the commissioner. And we have very healthy and robust meetings in California. But at the end of the day, inside zone, little outside zone, man coverage, little zone coverage, cover kicks, return kicks, fundamentals, techniques, West Virginia, West Virginia, West Virginia, West Virginia, West Virginia, West Virginia, West Virginia. On the road, which will be another. We talk about being excited for games. That's going to be a heck of an environment. That's going to be a heck of an environment.